recovery theme, at least for one day, guys.
I would say that, and I know there's a number of factors driving this. Powell last night, the vaccine. I mean, if you look at a stock like Disney, up about 7%, to me, that seems like a vaccine play. Do you think the market's getting ahead of itself, sort of waiting still for details on this hope that a vaccine will arrive soon?
I think the market is aware that you can play for a reopening and a smooth and successful one, perhaps as you get better treatments and vaccines, and you're not going to be proven wrong for quite a while, right? So there's this little window here that I think investors can operate in. Also, where's Disney coming from? It traded at 150 at the highs. It's not as if it's back to the highs, assuming that we're going to have full parks anytime soon. So there's also some slack there where you can make up ground and still not necessarily be pricing in everything is great. So I do think, though, you're right, that the vaccine news today was the accelerant. It was the new thing we didn't know coming into this week, because Powell, he really just reiterated what we've assumed for a while is the Fed's posture.
Mike, thanks so much for that. We are, by the way, session highs as we stand, which is almost 4% on the Dow, just shy of that. Turning now to Moderna and the positive trial results Mike and Sarah just mentioned that gave the market a big boost this morning. Meg Terrell has more on that angle and exactly how significant that data is. Meg.
Hi, well, it's pretty significant as these are the first human clinical trial data results we've seen for a potential COVID-19 vaccine, but it's very early days. I mean, this was a phase 1 trial and it included about 45 participants, but really just 8 of those participants are the ones that are truly meaningful because those were the ones who had data to show neutralizing antibodies. And those are important because those are the antibodies that actually block the virus's ability to infect cells. So while they did enroll 45 people between the ages of 18 and 55, they only had data from those 8 so far to evaluate that neutralizing antibody response. However, it was a 100% response in just those 8 patients. From a safety perspective, they said it looked generally well tolerated, and now they are planning a phase 3 trial to begin in July. And of course, we know they had already planned to start a phase 2 really any day now. They only started this phase 1 trial, if you look back at the timeline, in March. So this is going incredibly quickly. And guys, as we run the results today by experts in the field, they say, yes, they are promising, but they're early. And there are still a lot of questions to be answered, including when you give it to more people, what does the safety look like? And when you give it to older people, what do their immune responses look like? Because, of course, they are the most vulnerable in this setting. But just going back to the conversation you were just having, this is really 8 patients worth of data driving however many billions in market value in Moderna's stock and the rest of the market. It's just sort of amazing to think about it from that perspective, guys.
It is, Meg, and as Mike was pointing out too, we've got a lot of the sort of cyclical stocks like banks that are rallying the most, as if the economy itself is going to benefit from this news. And I know it's very positive and very hopeful data, and that phase 3 even is going to start in July along with the phase 2. But I also note from some of the analyst notes that the BLA filing, they still say best case Q1, and therefore the timeline of when this would be broadly and commercially available is still sort of at the earliest early next year, more likely middle of next year. Is that fair?
Yeah, that does sound fair. And still, that would be shattering records in terms of the speed to get a vaccine commercially available. When we hear people talking about the end of this year for potentially having a vaccine, that is most likely on an emergency use basis deployed to the highest risk people. So you're still even talking in sort of a limited or even experimental setting in some ways, having vaccines available by the end of this year. So in terms of commercially available really broadly and really cleared through the FDA, even middle of 2021 would be incredibly fast.
Meg Terrell, Meg, thank you. With the Dow at more than 900 points, sitting just near session highs. Oil prices are also joining the party today, surging. WTI crude retaking the $30 per barrel level. Brian Sullivan has more on what's behind this pretty big comeback, Brian.
Yeah, I'm going to say 2 things I don't think I've ever said in years covering energy, Sarah and Wolf, and that is oil is the best performing sector today, the stocks, and the best performing sector this quarter. The left for dead energy stocks, they have come back. Now listen, off a far base. I mean, look at that chart. That red spike toward the right, that was the negative $40 range. That's when we rolled over to the June contract from May. Hard to believe a month ago, feels like 10 years ago, to be honest with you. And we are going to roll over our June to July contract tomorrow. Will we go negative again? Probably not. Here's why. As we just talked about, storage, it is not as full as it was. There's a very simple reason. We're driving more. Some states are reopening. You talked about the vaccine. Right now, it's early. Certain case growth rates trend in reopened states haven't been that bad. More people are on the roads as well. That is drawing down gasoline. Refiners then are buying more as well. And so that moment that we all feared where all the tanks were just going to be filled up and you had to pay somebody to take your contract, the negative price, unlikely to happen. But hey, it's always
We'll hear from Jay Powell tomorrow and again on Thursday. My thanks to Kathleen Hayes, Global Economics and Policy Editor for Bloomberg, and Yelena Shalecheva, Senior U.S. Economist for Bloomberg Economics. A lot going on in the nation and the world. Let's get an update now. We go down to D.C. and Nancy Lyons. Hey, Nancy.
Hey, Jason. Well, an experimental vaccine from Moderna is showing promising early signs that it can create an immune system response in the body that could help fend off the virus. This is according to a sampling of data from a small first human trial of the inoculation. The study was primarily designed to look at the safety of the shot and showed no major warning signs in a small phase 1 trial. The Federal Bureau of Investigation says it has been able to unlock encrypted iPhones belonging to the shooter in December's attack at the Naval Air Station in Pensacola, Florida. By doing that, they were able to discover his longtime commitment to al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. Bloomberg's Irv Chapman reports from Washington.
FBI Director Christopher Wray said it took 4 months of work to get information that would have advanced the investigation into al-Qaeda's continuing threat.
The evidence we've been able to develop from the killer's devices shows that the Pensacola attack was actually the brutal culmination of years of planning and preparation, and he then pressed his plans forward, joining the Air Force and bringing his plot here to America.
Wray and Attorney General Liam Barr assailed Apple for refusing, in the name of user privacy, to unlock the terrorists' 2 phones, despite court orders. In Washington, Irv Chapman, Bloomberg Radio.
Tropical storm Arthur is making its way along the East Coast. Already the storm has brought heavy rains to North Carolina. Forecasters are warning the first named storm of the Atlantic hurricane season could also spread life-threatening surf and rip currents at beaches on the eastern seaboard in the days ahead. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Nancy Lyons.
When you follow the facts.
Bloomberg's been reporting on this intelligence community report.
When you seek out the experts.
The investment banks that Bloomberg speak to also want some relief.
No matter what else is happening.
It's been pretty hard to read the signals.
At least you know what's real.
The economic fallout from the virus risks becoming entrenched.
Bloomberg Daybreak Europe. Weekdays at 1 a.m. Eastern. On Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the lingo.
Jelly. Jelly adjective. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same. Visit adoptuskids.org, brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt US Kids, and the Ad Council.
In-depth analysis, concise reporting, need-to-know global business news. Around the world and across the markets, Bloomberg connects the dots for decision makers. Stay on top of today's headlines. Follow big breakthroughs in tech. Understand the latest political issues. See how the world's wealthiest are spending their money. Track what's happening in the markets, and much more. Subscribe today to Bloomberg, the global standard for business reporting. Get it all at Bloomberg.com/subscriptions.
Hi, we're the Goo Goo Dolls. We're fortunate that our daughters have what they need to grow and learn. But that isn't the case for nearly 13 million kids in the U.S. that struggle with hunger.
Childhood hunger is a heartbreaking reality that Feeding America America is working to change. Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste and provides it to families and children in need.
You can help kids in need in your community by visiting feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
If knowledge is... At George, we know there's nothing better than catching up with your mates. That's why we've invited Fern McCann over for a cuppa and a chat with some of her besties. Because staying in is the new going out, right? Join us and Fern over on our Instagram TV at Georgia Asda to get all the latest gossip, giggles and fashion tips. Sunday at 6 p.m.
Picture in your mind a stylish Audi with striking LED headlights, sporty alloy wheels, and some of our most advanced features, including a 10-inch digital cockpit and smart assistant systems like lane departure warning. Picture what that Audi looks like. Now think smaller. The Audi A1. It's not a small car, it's a small Audi. Visit audi.co.uk. Audi. Vorsprung durch Technik.
This is an important update from the government about coronavirus. We all need to stay alert so we can control the virus and reduce the risk of infection. To stay alert, you must remain at home as much as possible. Work from home if you can. Limit your contact with other people. If you have to go out, keep your distance from others, 2 meters apart where possible. Continue to wash your hands regularly. Do not leave home if you or anyone in your household has symptoms. Stay alert. Control the virus. Save lives.
Let's be honest, we all spend too much of our day on social media. But at least you can spend your endless scroll time to discover new things on TuneIn. Follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to always be in the know about the best new stuff streaming in the app. From breaking news stories and live sporting events.
He does! Fabry wins it!
To standout stations and podcasts. Stay in touch with TuneIn.
Get your MLB fix with these great podcasts on TuneIn. Fill your 7th inning stretch with the Ringer MLB Show.
I just can't get over it. It's like, oh, well, Jeter Downs. Didn't realize he was a top. Like, my dad is drinking the Kool-Aid on this. He's like, of course. Mookie was going to leave. I'm like, what do you mean? You don't know that.
Slide into second with the Starting 9 podcast.
Nolan Arenado slides right into the top spot for favorite baseball player. Active in the league right now. It is a pleasure to be sitting next to you, sir.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thank you.
This is, we've been waiting a long time for this. We actually, in terms of active
Round the Bases with the StatCast podcast.
Ways of going about it. I picked third, so in some ways it made it easier for me. Mike, just to go over the first couple of picks, Mike took Barry Bonds, who I think was kind of the obvious guy to take number one, not only.
Catch these and more MLB podcasts right here on TuneIn.
Brian Windhorst and the Hoop Collective podcast.
What about Giannis Antetokounmpo? He is going to be eligible to sign a Supermax extension, which we were projecting to be worth $240 million this summer. Well, if the salary cap drops, and even if he's wonderfully happy in Milwaukee, it may make no sense for him to sign when he can just wait a year and wait for the revenues to recover and then lock in.
Subscribe to Brian Windhorst and the Hoop Collective.
Search the Hoop Collective to listen.
Stay on top of everything happening in the pro wrestling universe with the Body Slamming podcasts on TuneIn. For passionate recaps of the most recent SmackDown to a pro wrestler's perspective on life and culture at large, search sports and scroll down to the world of wrestling to listen.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. We've got 43 minutes to go ahead of the closing bell with the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ at or near the best level of the day. U.S. stocks holding on to their gains. Let's find out what's going on as we head right over to the first word breaking news desk for today's afternoon call. Here he is, Bill Maloney.
And good afternoon, Charlie. U.S. futures were setting up for a big day pre-market, then added to their gains after Moderna's coronavirus vaccine showed promise Dow is currently up 900 points on the day. S&P's gained 93, and NASDAQ climbs by 208. The U.S. 10-year yield jumps to 0.74%. WTI crude futures are up 9%. Gold falls 11, and transports are up more than 500 points. All of the Dow stocks were in the green, led by Boeing, Raytheon, and Dow Inc. And in other news, airlines and cruise operators surged. United Airlines rose 20%. Norwegian Cruise rose 18%. Also in other news, Apache was cut to junk by Moody's, and Uber is exploring selling its non-core businesses. Wrapping things up, Baidu reports after the bell. Live from the First Breaking News Desk, I'm Bill Maloney. Charlie?
Okay, I thank you very much, Bill Maloney. And to hear live breaking news on your Bloomberg, type Squawk, SQUAWK, on your terminal. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. We'll catch up with you later on in the hour. In the meantime, let's catch up with Andy Brown. He is editorial director of Bloomberg New Economy, joining me on the phone from New Hampshire. He's got a great column on the Bloomberg today. Check it out. It's called, very simply, U.S.-China Relations Hang by Two Threads. And those threads feeling increasingly gossamer, Andy, in many ways. So much rhetoric flying back and forth. Tell us what you make of this, because it's trade and virus, right? I mean, are those the two threads?
Yep. Well, one of those is trade, that's for sure. Yeah. I mean, that's the most important one. This phase one trade deal, this is the most important achievement of the Trump administration vis-a-vis China. I mean, it's pretty much the only accomplishment, the signal accomplishment from, all the huffing and puffing and standing up to China. And, right now it's up in the air. So, Trump tells Fox Business last week, maybe we should just cut off the relationship altogether, the whole thing, just dump the relationship with China. And, it's not the first time we've heard this kind of rhetoric from him. Last year, you remember he told all American companies to exit China. But, increasingly markets seem to believe that he could be serious.
Yeah. And why? I mean, and we talked a little bit about this last week, but remind us, why this timing, do you think, and what's underneath this from the U.S. administration's perspective?
Well, look, I mean, Trump has always had a very idiosyncratic understanding of trade economics, right? I mean, so, he believes essentially that every trade deal the U.S. has ever entered into has been, bad for America. But America's got a raw deal, right? And, everybody else has gained at America's expense. So he doesn't like trade generally. He believes that trade deficits, by definition mean that the U.S. is getting a raw deal. It's sort of money that is coming out of your pocket when, of course, by and large, trade deficits in the U.S. are an indication that the U.S. economy is healthy and doing well. And, the only time America didn't have a trade deficit was during the Great Depression, where it disappeared altogether. So, he's always taken a grim view on trade, but, this seems to be part of the whole bashing China to deflect attention and deflect blame from his mishandling at a federal level of COVID-19.
Yeah. And so I was being a little bit glib about the virus, but the other one that you point out is basically the threat is the connectivity really between these two leaders, between President Xi and President Trump. Help me understand that.
Yeah, well, it's always been a bit of a fig leaf. So right from the beginning, the White House has been very careful to separate the personal relationship that Donald Trump allegedly has with Xi Jinping, to try to separate that from all of the other bad things that are happening in the relationship. So, this was supposed to be the thing that holds it all together and prevents a total unraveling. And, so hence we would hear him say things like, my good friend Xi Jinping. And Xi Jinping very rarely reciprocated this sort of thing. Chinese leaders don't go in for personal friendships. I mean, they go in for national interests, and that's it.
They're not big on sort of the bro-ness, right? They're not. That's not sort of their jam.
They don't do bromance. They don't do bromance domestically, and they certainly don't do it internationally. Nevertheless, there's been this kind of pretense that these two get along pretty well, and and last week he says I don't want to talk to him either, right? So it's kind of more symbolic of what really does appear to be a thoroughgoing unraveling of the entire relationship across its breadth. I mean, technology, exchanges, trade, talent, and now, of course, threatening to cut off the China from U.S. finance. Right. It's right across the board.
Well, and it's interesting too because you're seeing this divergence, and again, you're exactly right, and it's such a nice nuance to separate sort of the business from the personal. But even what seem to be these personal/professional views of something like the WHO, where you have the president of the United States saying, "I'm done with them. I may cut off all their funding," and President Xi, as recently as today, being like, "We're going to fund this, like we're all in." I mean, it feels like the virus has exacerbated some things here, right?
Yeah, right. Well, when President Xi stands up and says, if we get a vaccine in China, we're going to turn it into a public good and supply it to the whole world. And by the way, we're going to lob in another $2 billion to the WHO, which is a huge amount. I mean, comparative to what they've been putting in. I mean, it's $40 million a year. Right now, the U.S. is putting in $500 million. So clearly, there's a two-pronged effort here. One is to deflect global criticism from China's early mismanagement of the virus, but also it's a sort of a one-upmanship on Trump, right, who's defunding the WHO in the middle of a global pandemic.
It's amazing. All right. Always good to catch up with you. Always feel smarter after I talk to you. Andy Brown, editorial director of Bloomberg New Economy, joining me on the phone from New Hampshire. Coming up, Dave Wilson's chart of the day, and we're already headed that way to the close of trading on a very green day. This is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Wall Street's bulls are charging hard, putting stocks on track for the best gain in almost 6 weeks. Promising early results from an experimental coronavirus vaccine are fueling the rally. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is up 909, the S&P 500 up 93, the Nasdaq Composite is up 210. In a partial nod to an old ad slogan, American Express is telling employees, don't leave home. The company says a majority of its workers will work remotely for the rest of the year. Peloton is taking Icon Health and Fitness to court. It accuses the maker of Nordic Track of copying its interactive fitness programs and lying in its ads. Exercise bikes like the ones sold by Peloton aren't the only ones in demand. People are also desperate for bikes to ride outside. One bike shop owner says sales are up 300% from last year. People are even settling for unpopular colors like orange and turquoise. Larry Kofsky, Bloomberg Radio.
To buy your home, you became a house hunting ace, learned about loans, scoured neighborhoods, and asked the right questions. Now you're queen of your castle. If you manage that, you can get your retirement plan on track. Visiting aceyourretirement.org can help. With 401k tips and smart saving strategies, you'll feel empowered to own your retirement like you own your home. Go to aceyourretirement.org. Because when it comes to clearing financial hurdles, you're an ace. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Bloomberg and Eaton Vance are proud to present a Boston Pop salute to our heroes. This Independence Day, the orchestra's 4th of July tradition continues. The program will feature guest artists, highlights from past fireworks displays, new music paying tribute to the heroes of the current health crisis, and honoring the memories of those we have lost. Watch and listen Saturday, July 4th, starting at 8 Eastern, exclusively on Bloomberg Television and right here on Bloomberg Radio. In-depth analysis.
At George, we know there's nothing better than catching up with your mates. That's why we've invited Fern McCann over for a cuppa and a chat with some of her besties. Because staying in is the new going out, right? Join us and Fern over on our Instagram TV at Georgia Asda to get all the latest gossip, giggles and fashion tips. Sunday at 6 p.m.
This is an important update from the government about coronavirus. We all need to stay alert so we can control the virus and reduce the risk of infection. To stay alert, you must remain at home as much as possible. Work from home if you can. Limit your contact with other people. If you have to go out, keep your distance from others, 2 meters apart where possible. Continue to wash your hands regularly. Do not leave home if you or anyone in your household has symptoms. Stay alert. Control the virus. Save lives.
Did you know that with TuneIn's local radio feature, you can stream live FM and AM stations broadcasting in your area? Discover local news, talk, and music stations. Navigate to the local radio section under Browse to listen locally on TuneIn.
The NHL is always on the ice with these awesome hockey podcasts on TuneIn. Get your goal with the Spittin' Chicklets podcast.
Brian Yandel, Keith Yandel, thanks for coming on. What's going on?
Nothing much. Glad to be here. You guys got some nice digs here.
We heard you took Southwest 2-stop flight to get out here.
Yeah, well, just
carve up the ice with NHL at the rink.
The other day, I wrote a story. Artemi Panarin, Semyon Varlamov, Sergei Bobrovsky, they all helped arrange for the purchase of N95 masks to benefit hospitals in their respective markets. This is another one of those positive stories you're seeing.
Or create your own power play with Locked On NHL.
All these teams invested future assets to take a run at the Stanley Cup right now. Like, all of those teams would have a real serious gripe, like trading these multiple first-round picks to make a run at a cup. You're right.
Discover these and more NHL podcasts right here on TuneIn.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Be part of the college sports conversation on TuneIn. Hear the latest storylines around SEC football with the Paul Feinbaum Show.
I distinctly remember when you were hired, and I must say most of us thought you were out of your mind. Giving up, I wouldn't call it a cush job because you were traveling across the country.
Get your college hoops fix with college basketball talk on NBC Sports.
Headed by Shabazz Napier. That also included Amita Brima, who is in and around the NBA ranks right now, and DeAndre Daniels, who was the 37th pick in the 2014 NBA draft. So my question to you is...
Or listen to the daily news from around the wide world of college football with College Football Live.
I would go with Utah. I think Utah is the better team. And I know I'm talking to an Oklahoma guy, but listen, and it may be recency bias having watched Utah last week and doing that game, but I just think they're a more complete football.
Discover these and more college sports podcasts right here on TuneIn.
Live to New York, Bloomberg 1130. To Washington, D.C., Bloomberg 99.1. To Boston, Bloomberg 106.1. To San Francisco, Bloomberg 960. To the country, Sirius XM Channel 119. And around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Business Week.
Coming up, going to check in with Dave Wilson for his chart of the day. It is tech-driven. Amazon. We're going to talk a lot about it. That is coming up next. Also, the song of the day. I know it's Charlie Pellet's favorite part. Charlie is here with an update on the business day. Hey, Charlie.
Well, hello there. We got 28 minutes to go ahead of the closing bell and just about 2 minutes to go until that song of the day. Here's what's going on. Stocks higher across the board. Do want to begin with a couple of headlines out of California. The Governor Newsom speaking, says that California will relax some criteria for reopening and says most of the state could open more quickly, indeed, keeping with the theme of the day today. Stocks jumping to the highest level since early March after promising early results for an experimental vaccine sparked speculation economies could snap back more quickly. The S&P surging after Moderna said its vaccine test yielded signs it can create an immune system response in the body. Moderna shares are up now by 21.7%. The Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ, look at that best level of the day again with the S&P up 100 points now, up 3.5%. The Dow is up 964, up 4.1%, and NASDAQ up 239, a gain there of 2.6%, again with 28 minutes to go. We've got the 10-year down 27.30 seconds, the yield there 0.73%. Gold is down 0.5%, 17.34 the ounce. Can't ignore crude oil today, surging again, up 9.9%, 32.34 a barrel. Americans have become used to wearing masks whenever they venture outside, but how important is this in actually curbing the spread of COVID-19? Dr. Joshua Sharfstein is Vice Dean of the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health.
The real thing that protects people is the distance between them. The physical barriers, the 6 feet, the redoing the schedule so there are not as many people in the office. All of those things are important. The masks are kind of like the icing on the cake, so to speak.
The Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health is supported by Michael R. Bloomberg, founder of Bloomberg LP and Bloomberg Philanthropies. Uber is eliminating 3,000 jobs, the latest in a series of cost cuts by the company, which has been hammered by the pandemic's impact on its global ride-hailing business. We do have Uber shares trading higher today, up by 3.3%. Lyft, though, seeing an even bigger gain, up now by 8.1%. JCPenney, the department store chain that filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy last Friday, says it will close almost 30% of its stores as part of its broader business plan. JCPenney shares plunging 19%. Recapping, equities higher, S&P up 100, up 3.5%. Bring on the song of the day. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, catch up with you in a few minutes to talk more about the news of the day. This is Dave Wilson. I'm embarrassed to say I cannot come up with the artist. Talk to me.
All right, let's talk Blue Oyster Cult. Godzilla.
Well done.
You know,
it's a great
think
tune.
of Amazon as the Godzilla of retailing. Okay, let's start there.
I think that is a very fair choice. Tell us about how this fits in, because this is a dramatic chart in many ways.
Oh, it absolutely is. And it really started just with looking at the industry groups in the S&P 500. Now, I usually talk about 11 of them. I mean, those are the broadest categories. But there are different levels. And if you move up a level, there are 24. And retailers, best performers in the S&P 500 this year out of those 24 groups. And when you think about what's been going on in retailing lately with the coronavirus and all, it's like, how does that work?
That makes no sense, right?
Well, it makes perfect sense
when
you look at Amazon, which dominates the category. I mean, it's most of the S&P 500 retailing index's value, and it's been an outsized performer within the index. I mean, bear in mind, end of last week, 9.4% gain for this S&P 500 retailing index. If you took Amazon out, it would have been down 4.6%. That's how much of an effect it's had. You know, only 5 out of 24 stocks in the index are higher. Amazon's one of them. The rest don't come close, even if you put them all together, to Amazon's contribution to this index. I mean, it just goes to show you how much, given that they are the biggest online retailer and their warehouses are everywhere in the U.S. and internationally, it seems, what an effect they're having on the category overall for investors. And if you want to know more, folks, send me an email. I get you the chart, the explanation that goes with it, and everything I do going forward. The email address is dwilson@bloomberg.net. That's dwilson@bloomberg.net.
But it almost feels like there should be an asterisk then. Right? I mean, is it a misclassification, do you think? Or is it just a sign of where this market has moved in terms of how people buy and sell?
Probably more the latter.
Okay.
When you think about just how big Amazon has become, And we tend to think of them as much as a tech company as anything because of the nature of their business. And, of course, they've added on Amazon Web Services.
Right.
And that's certainly part of the mix as well. So they're competing directly with the likes of Microsoft and, Alphabet's Google unit and so on. So, it just shows you how it's kind of skewed this all is. We should point out there are a few retailers in a different index. Walmart's one of them. So, it might not be quite as dominant if you were to put those two indexes together.
Yeah.
But it just goes to show you, Amazon's really rolling over the industry. We sort of know that from looking at retailers all these years. And it's really evident when it comes to its index effect.
Yeah, it's such an interesting point too, because you're right. If someone out there was looking at their portfolio and they were somehow invested in an ETF or something that tracked that index, they would think, "Wow, retail's doing great. I never would have expected that in the midst of a pandemic where everything is shut down and J.Crew, Neiman Marcus, JCPenney are going out of business, and yet retailers are up." What do you make of this? Just in the last minute or so, Dave, what do you make of this market today? The Dow up 4%.
Yeah, it just goes to show you how much room there is to rally even now, given what a little bit of optimism will do for investors. Now, whether this holds up, or it proves to be a one-day wonder, that's what's going to be worth watching for over the next several days. But, we've had some back and forth lately, and, this is the fourth part.
Yeah, biggest gain on the Dow, at least I was just looking at it, since early April, and the highest level since basically early March. So we'll see if that holds, and obviously a lot of questions tomorrow when Secretary Mnuchin and Jay Powell are up testifying on Capitol Hill, or testifying in front of Capitol Hill. Maybe it'll all be remote. Dave Wilson, talk to you in a few minutes after the close of trading, a big green day and a great chart. All right, let's get down to Washington now. Nancy Lyons is there. She's got your world and national headlines. Hey, Nancy.
Thanks again, Jason. Watch for a new piece of legislation in the Senate coming from a bipartisan group of senators. Bloomberg's Amy Morris reports the group wants to establish a coronavirus aid fund for state and local governments.
They want to establish the $500 billion fund to help states hardest hit by the pandemic. The money would be divided into 3 tranches and distributed according to formulas reflecting population, infection rates, and revenue loss. Municipalities of any size can use the money. All states, plus D.C. and Puerto Rico, would receive at least $2 billion under the plan. It is a bipartisan measure in the Senate, and a bipartisan companion measure has been introduced in the House. In Washington, I'm Amy Morris, Bloomberg Radio.
Attorney General William Barr says he does not expect the Justice Department to open a criminal investigation into former President Barack Obama or Vice President Joe Biden, despite prodding to do so by President Trump.
We cannot allow this process to be hijacked by efforts to drum up criminal investigations of either candidate.
At a news conference today, Barr did express his outrage against the Russia probe against President Trump, calling it abhorrent. Congressional Democrats say the State Department watchdog, now in the process of being fired by President Trump, was investigating possible impropriety and a massive arms sales to Saudi Arabia last year. Democrats say ousted Inspector General Steve Linick was probing how the State Department pushed through a $7 billion Saudi arms sale over congressional objections. Neither the White House nor the State Department has provided any reasons for Linick's dismissal. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Nancy Lyons.
Jenny Liss, Jewish communal leader and philanthropist, talks about why she chose the Jewish Communal Fund for her family's charitable giving.
For a lot of people, it would be the convenience factor. I don't have to track anything.
If charitable giving is an important part of your life, JCF can help you organize your philanthropy with our donor-advised fund. A fund can be established with a minimum tax-deductible contribution of $5,000. Make grants to your favorite charities, and JCF handles all the administration and reporting.
At the year end, and our board awards community grants from fees and endowment income to UJ's annual campaign. We also make gifts to specific organizations, the elderly, Holocaust survivors, the hungry. The fact that we come together as a community at the end of the year to build community, that's what makes us different.
Get better at giving back. To find out more about JCF's impact, visit jcfny.org and download the Giving Report. JCF, we have a gift for giving.
Hey y'all, Jeff Foxworthy here. Now, if you've ever found yourself repeating the same thing over and over for 75 years, you might be Smokey Bear.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
That's why I'm filling in for Smokey to switch things up, because there's a lot more to say. And I should know because my grandfather was a firefighter. And one of the things he taught me is that the people that love the outdoors the most are often the ones accidentally starting wildfires, which means always BYOB. No, bring your own bucket to the campfire. And be extra careful with things like burning yard trimmings. Don't just walk away, or chances are you might be starting a wildfire. So for the love of the outdoors, go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
The world's financial decision.
At George, we know there's nothing better than catching up with your mates. That's why we've invited Fern McCann over for a cuppa and a chat with some of her besties. Because staying in is the new going out, right? Join us and Fern over on our Instagram TV at Georgia Asda to get all the latest gossip, giggles and fashion tips. Sunday at 6 p.m.
The law around organ donation will be changing in England, but you are free to register your decision whenever you like. Organ donation remains your choice. You can choose whether to opt in or out of becoming an organ and tissue donor. Whatever you decide, please register your decision and tell your friends and family. Find out more at organdonation.nhs.uk.
Let's be honest, we all spend too much of our day on social media. But at least you can spend your endless scroll time to discover new things on TuneIn. Follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to always be in the know about the best new stuff streaming in the app. From breaking news stories and live sporting events.
Yeah, but it's unique times. I think there's unique circumstances, and we're trying to
standout stations and podcasts. Stay in touch with TuneIn.
Keep up with everything happening in the wild world of pro wrestling with a podcast on TuneIn. For expert analysis straight from the WWE to Steve Austin's no-holds-barred conversations with wrestling's biggest personalities, search sports and scroll down to the world of wrestling to listen.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Hit the court anytime with these great NBA podcasts on TuneIn. The Low Post.
So what struck you about this potential head-to-head matchup? What did we learn now that Zion is involved and LeBron and Zion go at each other for the first time?
You know, I still think both teams have to figure out kind of who are their guys when they get into a fourth quarter. I think you saw that with both of them. There were some kind of odd moments.
The Ringer NBA show.
Who ended up winning the thing. But I did watch for a little bit when it was DeAndre Ayton and Zach LaVine playing against each other. And then as the days went on, Devin Booker was involved. Tell me you've seen the clip of Devin Booker when I can't remember who his opponent was.
Or the Haber Show.
At the end, it's because I worked in the NBA in a front office, and when I was 14 years old, my family moved back from Sudan to America. I went to high school here in New York
Find these and more NBA podcasts right here on TuneIn. With the NHL season temporarily on ice, now is a good time to catch up on past games. With Game Replay on TuneIn, you can hear every matchup of the 2019-2020 season so far. And for a limited time, it's free for hockey fans everywhere. Search Classic Game Replays to start listening.
Did you know that with TuneIn's local radio feature, you can stream live FM and AM stations broadcasting in your area? Discover local news, talk, and music stations. Navigate to the local radio section under Browse to listen locally on TuneIn.
Brian Windhorst and the Hoop Collective Podcast.
What about Giannis Antetokounmpo? He is going to be eligible to sign a Supermax extension, which we were projecting to be worth $240 million this summer. Well, if the salary cap drops, and even if he's wonderfully happy in Milwaukee, it may make no sense for him to sign when he can just wait a year and wait for the revenues to recover and then lock in.
Subscribe to Brian Windhorst and the Hoop Collective.
Search the Hoop Collective to listen.
Be part of the college sports conversation on TuneIn. Hear the latest storylines around SEC football with the Paul Feinbaum Show.
I distinctly remember when you were hired, and I must say most of us thought you were out of your mind, giving up. I wouldn't call it a cush job because you were traveling across the country.
Get your college hoops fix with college basketball talk on NBC Sports.
Headed by Shabazz Napier, that also included Amita Brima, who is in and around the NBA ranks right now, and DeAndre Daniels, who was the 37th pick in the 2014 NBA draft. So my question to you is,
or listen to the daily news from around the wide world of college football with College Football Live.
I would go with Utah. I think Utah is the better team. And I know I'm talking to an Oklahoma guy, but listen, and it may be recency bias having watched Utah last week and doing that game, but I just think they're a more complete football.
Discover these and more college sports podcasts right here on TuneIn.
Lines and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. 13 minutes to go ahead of the closing bell with the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all moving higher. Not every day you get to hear the guy on the radio telling you there's a more than 1,000-point jump in the Dow Jones Industrial Average. Up 1,017 right now, up 4.3% on the day. We've got the S&P up 104 points now, up 3.6%, and NASDAQ is surging 251 points, up by 2.8%. Stocks at the highest level of the day after promising early results for an experimental vaccine from Moderna. Spark speculation economies could snap back quickly. Moderna shares are up now by 20.8%. 10-year yield, 0.73%. We've got gold down 0.8%, down lower by $13 the ounce. Again, gold down 0.8%, $17.30 the ounce, and West Texas Intermediate crude oil surging 10.3%, $32.47 a barrel. Again, recapping, equities higher across the board, a 103-point jump for the S&P 500 index, up 3.6%. The Dow up 1,011 points, up 4.3%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
I'm driving in my car. I turn on the radio.
How about you let me drive?
Oh, no. Who's gonna drive you home?
Honey, please, I'll do the driving.
Drive on.
Excuse me, I want to drive.
Just drive, baby.
It's the question that drives us.
This is the Drive to the Close.
That funky music will drive us till the dawn.
On Bloomberg Radio.
All right, it's time for the Drive to the Close. George Young with me, partner and portfolio manager for Villere Funds, on the phone from New Orleans. And, you know, when Carol's off the show for a little while, we just go Southern. We go full Southern, George Young. Tell me what's going on down in the Big Easy.
Well, everything's going pretty well here. I got to thank you for having me on such a wonderful day, because you could have had me here on March 23rd. I think the tone might have been a little different. Your audience's mood might have been a little different, so thank you for that.
A little different for sure, yeah. So what is it like? I mean, I want to talk stocks and I want to talk the market, but do tell me, what's it like on the ground there?
Things are pretty good. I mean, obviously being in the Southeast, we've got beautiful weather right now, and I know in the Northeast you didn't have that until recently. So we've had a great spring, obviously marred by COVID-19. That's been tough on all of us here around the world, actually. But I think we've seen some recovery here, and possibly it's because we took our hit a little bit earlier. Possibly because of Mardi Gras, close contact there, unfortunately. Obviously, everybody knows about Mardi Gras scene. But in that case, we took our hit early, and things are looking a lot better here. So I tend to be optimistic, and as a rule, and I tend to be optimistic about where we're going with this in a lot of different ways. So things are good here, and hope they're getting a lot better nationally and internationally.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think you'd agree that, New York City and its environs, where I am talking to you from, I'm just north of the city right now. And, obviously we were there on the front end as well. And it is interesting to sort of watch this play out and see different investors and business people talk about it in different parts of the country. And we're always quick to ask our folks, especially who are outside of the Northeast, what's going on. So you look at a market like today's, George, with a huge amount of enthusiasm, as you alluded to, biggest jumps in over a month, highest levels since early March. And, that March period, as you said, was bleak to say the least. How much do you worry that maybe this is too optimistic?
Well, the market does seem like it may have gotten ahead of itself. We've had such a major move from the lows. It's just been incredible. Yeah. Specifically, the move has been approximately up 20%, 25%, depending on which index you want to measure. We tend to be more small, mid-cap oriented, so the recovery has been a lot more severe. It's been about 30% for the Russell 2000, for instance. That's a hell of a move upward, and at some point the market faces some sort of equilibrium, so arguably a little bit overbought at the moment. However, there are still a number of stocks that still are being punished. And it's somewhat interesting because a month or two ago, market lows, we thought there were opportunities to buy, and we were fortunate enough to have cash for our clients. Yeah. And we really tried to look into three different categories. There were the aggressive categories, cruises and casinos, for instance, because you think, who's ever going to go back into a casino? Who's ever going to go on a cruise again? However, that was certainly priced into the stocks. Then we thought, it might make sense to move to something a little more moderate, such as transportation or medical. If somebody needs to move goods from one place to another, they're going to use a trucker, for instance. If somebody needs to have a knee replacement, they don't have to get it done today, but in due course, they do need to have that knee replaced. And then you could look at the maybe more conservative or obvious stocks, such as utilities or maybe tech. Everybody in the world is using Zoom. Everybody in the world is using Amazon. That's a little obvious. Again, that's priced in the stock, and that makes that stock a little more expensive. So we use the middle ground. We bought J.B. Hunt, which is a transportation company, the trucker, one of the most efficient out there. When it comes to intermodal, they've got about a 35% market share. And we chose Stryker, which a lot of orthopedic surgeons out there would know, or those that have had knee or shoulder replacements would understand that's the best in business. So we went with the middle ground, which made sense, and we were rewarded. So things look pretty good at this moment, but it depends on the consumer. And I think maybe one thing that listeners need to take away is that patience is important, both in avoiding contact with the virus. You also need patience for investing, not coincidentally. If you look at the numbers, over the past 15 years, markets returned about 9%, and if an investor misses the 20 best days, that return drops to 1%. Wow. So don't get whipsawed. Don't get in and get out. And behavioral psychologists that will tell you investors tend to be very skittish. And on days like today, you think, everything's great. Let's keep buying. Yeah. A week ago, when we had a bad day, you might have thought the world's falling apart. Don't do any buying ever again. Right. Somewhere in between those ways, those approaches is the way to do it. But you need to have patience as an investor.
So tell me just a little bit more about each of those names, J.B. Hunt and Stryker, because, obviously they're not, other folks are in that business as well. What did you see in those particular names?
Well, what we saw is that with Stryker, for instance, let's go back to the hip and the knee replacements, the shoulder replacements. Those are delayed surgeries. You don't want to, it's not elective surgery where you would go in to have a dermatological procedure, for instance. This is something that really needs to be done. It just doesn't need to be done today. But at some point, you need to get that done. Stryker, we think, is the best in the business. They've been in each of those businesses I named for over 50 years. So it's the sort of thing that they have the expertise, they understand how it works, and they have a good sales group. They've got a good management group that's been in charge for some time. So that's what we try to do, is once we find a theme, we try to see what's going to work best with that theme in terms of management. We also look at debt. We want a company that doesn't have too much debt, because that's the way that you can get in trouble nowadays. If you don't have staying power, you're not going to be able to withstand the bad markets.
So before I let you go, talk to me just for 30, 45 seconds about First Hawaiian, because I think that's another name you like.
Right. So again, if you take a look at the banks, banks are comprised of borrowers, and they're comprised of people who will lend money to the bank, i.e. depositors.
Yeah.
In this case, there's not much spread between what somebody can get in terms of their interest rates, nor is there much of a difference with what you can get in terms of a mortgage. So that net interest spread is where the bank makes money. That's tough on all banks nowadays. But we look at who's going to recover first. Hawaii is based on tourism and also military spending. Yeah. Tourism is going to come back in due course. We don't know when. Military spending is a constant. Hawaii, and in particular First Hawaiian, is a very good base for a bank to operate. They're the oldest bank west of the Mississippi.
I know. That was amazing. I saw that in the notes. I would not. That's a trivia question I would have gotten dead wrong. I would have said something in California. All right. George Young, partner and portfolio manager for Villere Funds, joining me on the phone from New Orleans. Always good to hear that accent. All right. We're coming up on the close. A very green day, to say the least. We'll break it down with Dave Wilson, Movers and Shakers, coming up next.
With a new day comes...
At George, we know there's nothing better than catching up with your mates. That's why we've invited Fern McCann over for a cuppa and a chat with some of her besties. Because staying in is the new going out, right? Join us and Fern over on our Instagram TV at Georgia Asda to get all the latest gossip, giggles and fashion tips. Sunday at 6 p.m.
This is an important update from the government about coronavirus. We all need to stay alert so we can control the virus and reduce the risk of infection. To stay alert, you must remain at home as much as possible. Work from home if you can. Limit your contact with other people. If you have to go out, keep your distance from others, 2 meters apart where possible. Continue to wash your hands regularly. Do not leave home if you or anyone in your household has symptoms. Stay alert. Control the virus. Save lives.
The force is strong in my family. My father has it. I have it. You have that power too.
For the first time ever, stream the complete Skywalker saga, all in one place. 9 incredible films, 1 epic story, only on Disney+.
The Force will be with you. Always.
The Skywalker Saga on Disney+. Now streaming. 18+ subscription required. T's and C's apply.
Let's be honest, we all spend too much of our day on social media. But at least you can spend your endless scroll time to discover new things on TuneIn. Follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to always be in the know about the best new stuff streaming in the app. From breaking news stories and live sporting events. To standout stations and podcasts, stay in touch with TuneIn.
4 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. The closing bell at the New York Stock Exchange as we wrap up trading on this Monday with the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all surging. An 896-point gain in the Dow Jones Industrial Average at the close. Here as the numbers settle up by 3.8%. S&P higher by 90. That is a gain of 3.1%. And NASDAQ up 220 points for the NASDAQ Composite Index. That is a gain of 2.4%. Again, the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all rallying after promising early results for an experimental vaccine sparked speculation economies could snap back quickly. The S&P surged after Moderna said its vaccine test yielded signs it can create an immune system response in the body. Moderna up today by 19.9%. S&P again at the close up 90, a gain there of 3.1%. Some of the other stories that we're following for you today include shares of airline, travel, and leisure-focused companies soaring after an experimental coronavirus vaccine did show promise. Among some of the airline stocks today, UAL, parent of United, up by 21.1%. American up by 9.2%. Delta Airlines up today by 13.9%. Southwest Airlines up by 13.4%. And among some of the hotel operators today, Marriott was up 17.3%. Hilton up by 6.6%. Hyatt Hotels up today by 13.9%. 10-year yield 0.72%. Gold down 0.6%, 17.35 the ounce. And West Texas Intermediate crude rallying 9.7% at $32.29 a barrel. Among some of the oil stocks today, ExxonMobil was up by 8%. Recapping, stock surge, S&P up by 90, a gain of 3.1%. The Dow up 911, up 3.9%. NASDAQ up 220, a gain there of 2.4%. I'm Charlie Pellet, and that's a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Your next move will be your last.
Nobody move a muscle.
Damn, Sippy, you got some moves.
And I'm moving on from town to town.
Time is money. Let's go. Come on, move it.
Shake it up. Shake it up.
Bloomberg Business Week, Movers and Shakers, with Carol Mazur and Jason Kelly on Bloomberg Radio.
All right, you are listening to Bloomberg Business Week here on Bloomberg Radio. Well, let's look at what was moving and shaking. It was moving definitely toward the upside today. And part of that reason is optimism around a vaccine, some increased optimism that maybe we're starting to see the other side of this. A headline just crossing the Bloomberg. U.S. virus cases rise 1.2%. That's the slowest pace in more than 2 weeks. So interesting to dig into that a little bit more. If we look at what's going on with the S&P today, of the 505 names, 469 up, 36 down. Dave Wilson, come on in here, because that pretty much held from when we started talking to you on this program at the top of the 2 p.m. Hour. That breakdown, very few stocks down. This is broad-based.
Oh, absolutely, Jason. I mean, that's sort of how the days unfolded. All 11 of the main industry groups in the S&P 500 higher. And, you know, Charlie Pellet's talking about Moderna, and there's been so much focus on that company in terms of COVID-19 vaccines. But you got some other stocks that are related that have really taken off in today's trading, too. Novavax, which is also working on a vaccine, up 30.5%. Now get this. B. Riley FBR raises its 12-month share price estimate, highest among analysts we've surveyed, $53. The shares close at $56.96.
Yeah, blew
That's
through
sort of
that.
how it's going. And then
Right.
you have Vir Biotechnology, which has identified an antibody that would be used for a potential coronavirus treatment, up 32%. And Sorrento Therapeutics, which really took off on Friday after they came out and said they had identified an antibody that could stop the coronavirus in its tracks, basically. Those shares were up as much as 48% today and closed lower. They were down 3.8% at the close.
Huh. Well, and the other sector, and I think you mentioned this early in the show, and we certainly heard it from Charlie a couple times, all these travel names, your biggest gainer is United Airlines, up 21%, Expedia up almost 19%, and Norwegian Cruise Lines up 18%. So your top three gainers there, travel, I mean, is that just pure optimism that life is getting towards something where we get on planes and go places again?
We've seen so much volatility in these stocks that, you know, this happens to be the up day. I mean, bear in mind just how much the shares are down for the year. You mentioned United. It's still down more than 72.5% this year. You look at Norwegian Cruise Lines, it's off 78%. So, I mean, a lot of volatility with these stocks. Certainly, though, it's been mostly lower.
Yeah. Interesting, too, that your number 4 gainer in the S&P is L Brands. I mean, I shouldn't laugh. That's just been, you know, one of these stocks that, you know, jeepers, for the past year, we've been talking about with all the ebbs and flows and the drama around Jeffrey Epstein and his ties to that company, the sale that didn't happen of the Victoria's Secret brand to Sycamore Partners, but a little bit of optimism. It feels like maybe on the broader retail side, you had a I believe, a price target boost from Wedbush for L Brands that may have been responsible there for the almost 18% gain. All right, let's take a quick look at volatility. The VIX, and not surprisingly, it was down today, down by 8%, closing below 30. Haven't seen that in a week or two, closing at 29.30. This is Bloomberg.
All right, Dave, you're up.
Hi, my name is Dave.
Wilson, where are you? Wilson!
Just what do you think you're doing, Dave?
We're going for a price on Wilson.
Open up the door. It's Dave. Who? Dave.
Well, hey, Mr. Wilson, you're already here. We opened the door a while ago. You wandered in. You said some really smart things about the rest of the stock market, but we're going to talk about one specific name now. Your stock of the day. You gave us a hint earlier that has to do with the Grand Ole Opry. Talk to me.
Ryman Hospitality
Love
Properties,
it.
Jason. It's a real estate investment trust. They own Nashville's Ryman Auditorium, the original home of the Grand Ole Opry, along with the Opry's current location, its radio station, and the Gaylord Opryland Resort. The company also has resorts in Maryland, Florida, Texas, and Colorado. Ryman Hospitality had been Gaylord Entertainment before becoming a REIT in 2012. The name change brought a ticker change to the current RHP.
Yep.
The shares more than doubled from the conversion day through last November when they set a record. This year, Ryman Hospitality has given back the entire game and then some. The shares have plunged as much as 85%, and in March, they set a 10-year low. Now, as Ryman Hospitality fell, a one-time shareholder returned. Money manager Eminence Capital disclosed late Friday that it bought a 3.3% stake in the first quarter. And if you go back and look at that firm's filings, they show Eminence had a stake in Gaylord between 2003 and 2009. Now, while Ryman Hospitality has dropped this quarter, the loss is much smaller after today. The shares rose almost 23.5%, the biggest gain in about 7 weeks.
And they're now the fifth biggest holder, just looking at the HDS function
yes,
there
they are.
on the Bloomberg. So this is that's a pretty big bet. But as you say, it's a historical one in the sense that they presumably made some money the last go round, right?
Presumably. I mean, at one point they had like a 6.9% stake in Gaylord. So, who knows what'll happen as things unfold from here. But, you see an investor sort of pop up like this. It's like, did they come from nowhere? No they know this company clearly, given their history.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, when you own the mother church of country music, that's something. And Nashville, as you and I have talked about, Dave, many times, it's a boomtown in many ways. And some of the best musicians in the world have played on those stages. All right, Dave Wilson, thanks for spending a little extra time with me today. We'll talk to you again tomorrow for your market insights, your chart, and stock of the day. All right, much more ahead. We're going to talk about the hospitality business through the lens of Best Western, small businesses, and Sheryl Sandberg coming up later as well. First, out to San Francisco, the Bay Area, and Ed Baxter. Hey, Ed.
Hey, Jason, thank you. We have a headline just across in the Bloomberg terminal that the president says that the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, asked him to fire the State Department watchdog. So we'll be getting more details on that as they come. Meanwhile, Attorney General William Barr says he does not expect any investigation of the early stages of the Russia election investigation to bring any criminal investigation of former President Barack Obama or Vice President Joe Biden. Now, this despite prodding by Donald Trump to do so.
I'm committed that this election will be conducted without this kind of interference. Any effort to pursue an investigation of either candidate has to be approved by me.
Although he does say that in 2016 a different standard was applied to Trump, he says it cannot happen again. California Governor Gavin Newsom is relaxing some criteria for reopening the state a bit earlier than he had anticipated. He said in the next few weeks.
Retail, not just to be picked up, but in-store retail to be loosened up. In addition to that, sporting events, pro sports in that first week or so of June without spectators.
He says 53 of the 58 counties will be eligible to start reopening then, although he does say that Los Angeles and San Francisco may not proceed as quickly. The same track for New York.
Come back. The state will work with you because remember,
government rules right now could stop a team coming back, right? What's essential, what's not essential.
Yeah, of course, that's New York Governor Andrew Cuomo. And meanwhile, the U.S. continues to rip the WHO in a speech to the virtual assembly, HHS.
The markets. No, you can't just run screaming from the room.
A lot of economists are just throwing up their hands and saying, we don't know.
But you don't have to manage this alone.
What are you looking at to give you some sort of compass through this period?
Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney.
What is your early read as to the scope and scale of this plan?
Bloomberg Markets. Weekday mornings at 10 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. Even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma.
At age 30, Carissa finished her high school diploma.
If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, you can do it.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
Are you interested in a challenging and exciting career? One where you can be part of solving complex challenges across industries and geographies. Bloomberg's ever-expanding technology, data, news, and media services foster innovation, empower clients, and offer nearly limitless opportunities for career growth. Visit Bloomberg.com/careers today to view our current job opportunities. Bloomberg LP is an equal opportunity employer. The address once again is Bloomberg.com/careers.
You know your body, and you know when something's off, when something doesn't feel quite right. Don't ignore symptoms like fatigue, joint pain, rashes, and fever. They could be signs of lupus. Listen to your body. Take care of yourself. We're here to help you take control of your health. Learn how at BeFierceTakeControl.org. Brought to you by the Lupus Foundation of America and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Bloomberg and Eaton Vance are...
At George, we know there's nothing better than catching up with your mates. That's why we've invited Fern McCann over for a cuppa and a chat with some of her besties. Because staying in is the new going out, right? Join us and Fern over on our Instagram TV at Georgia Asda to get all the latest gossip, giggles and fashion tips. Sunday at 6 p.m.
Picture in your mind a stylish Audi with striking LED headlights, sporty alloy wheels, and some of our most advanced features, including a 10-inch digital cockpit and smart assistant systems like lane departure warning. Picture what that Audi looks like. Now think smaller. The Audi A1. It's not a small car, it's a small Audi. Visit audi.co.uk. Audi. Vorsprung durch Technik.
This is an important update from the government about coronavirus. We all need to stay alert so we can control the virus and reduce the risk of infection. To stay alert, you must remain at home as much as possible. Work from home if you can. Limit your contact with other people. If you have to go out, keep your distance from others, 2 meters apart where possible. Continue to wash your hands regularly. Do not leave home if you or anyone in your household has symptoms. Stay alert. Control the virus. Save lives.
Typical Danny. Imagine trying to unwind at a spa weekend and you wind up getting your mud pack all over your fave personalised dressing gown. But no worries. Just one wash and my clothes will smell perf with Surf. Surf gives you long-lasting fragrance with natural essential oils. Find your fragrance in Surf's laundry range.
Where will 2020 take you? Somewhere where people care about each other, about our planet, about creating a better world for everyone, and becoming the best versions of yourselves. Join a community of like-minded individuals at the University of Winchester. Make sure to accept your offer by the UCAS deadline and visit our website to find out more. See the bigger picture. Be the difference. Go to winchester.ac.uk.
With the NHL season temporarily on ice, now is a good time to catch up on past games.
Whoa, this shot's going back again. Bergeron, he
With Game Replay on TuneIn, you can listen to every power play, slap shot, and goal of the 2019-2020 season so far.
Shooter to Cunnin to Fiala. He scores!
And for a limited time, it's free for hockey fans everywhere. Search Classic Game Replays to start listening.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
Get your MLB fix with these great podcasts on TuneIn. Fill your seventh inning stretch with the Ringer MLB Show.
I just can't get over it. It's like, oh, well, Jeter Downs. Didn't realize he was a top. Like, my dad is drinking the Kool-Aid on this. He's like, of course. Mookie was going to leave. I'm like, what do you mean? You don't know that.
Slide into second with the Starting Nine podcast.
Nolan Arenado slides right into the top spot for favorite baseball player. Active in the league right now. It is a pleasure to be sitting next to you, sir.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thank you.
This is, we've been waiting a long time for this. We actually, in terms of like active
Round the Bases with the StatCast podcast.
Ways of going about it. I picked third, so in some ways it made it easier for me. Mike, just to go over the first couple of picks, Mike took Barry Bonds, who I think was kind of the obvious guy to take number one, not only.
Catch these and more MLB podcasts right here on TuneIn.
Breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. Stocks surged to the highest since early March after promising early results for an experimental vaccine. Spark speculation economies could snap back quickly. S&P 500 index up 90 points, up 3.2% after Moderna Inc. said its vaccine test yielded signs it can create an immune system response in the body. Moderna shares up today by 19.9%. Companies that would benefit from a return toward more normal economic activity rallied. Carnival, for example, up 15%. Delta Airlines and Live Nation Entertainment climbed more than 13%. Again, the S&P up 3.1%. The Dow up 911 points, up 3.85%. NASDAQ up 220, up 2.4%. 10-year down 24.30 seconds. The yield 0.72%. Gold down 0.7%, 17.32 the ounce, and West Texas Intermediate crude surged 11.5%, 32.84 for a barrel of WTI. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Carol Massar along with Jason Kelly. Well, the Best Western hotel franchise includes, of course, Best Western, also some boutique brands and a lot more. It is, though, in reality, because of its franchise framework, a collection of many small business owners. So the perfect person to talk about both the impact of the virus on the hospitality industry overall as well as on small business owners is David Kong. He's president and CEO of Best Western Hotels and Resorts, joining us on the phone from Phoenix, Arizona. David, delighted to have you here with Jason and myself. First of all, tell us a little bit about your world, personally and professionally, what it's been like over the last couple of months.
Well, it's just been absolutely dreadful. This pandemic hit with such a big surprise and was so hard, hit us so hard that was totally unexpected. The industry is suffering like it's never had before. The impact of the pandemic is about 9 times worse than 9/11, just to give you a sense. And 70% of our employees are furloughed right now. I think the revenue was down by almost 80% last month and slightly better this month. So the industry has just been absolutely devastated.
Did you say 9 times worse than 9/11?
Correct, 9 times worse.
Wow.
And so, David, help us understand it to sort of set the stage about what you're talking about. Give us a sense of sort of the size and scope of the portfolio and the breadth of Best Western, especially because you guys made an acquisition, I believe, in 2019.
Correct. We have about 5,000 hotels around the world, and the types of hotels that we have, we offer a very, very diverse range of portfolio. We have economy segment hotels, and we have all the way up to luxury and upscale segments. We have boutique hotels and traditional hotels, extended stay hotels. So we have a very wide portfolio. And because of that, we can really see which segment has been tremendously impacted more than others. you take the upscale segment and the luxury segments; those have been the hardest hit. They are down by 90 to 95%.
And so where are you seeing less impact? Is it the sort of like drivable, the sort of more folks who are driving in, the lower end? Help us understand that.
Yes, the lower end hotels are actually faring better. The segment that's performed the best out of the situation actually our economy segment and also our extended stay segment. And the drive market definitely is much stronger than the fly market.
And so talk to us about the government's response, because you've been intimately involved in that. You've met with the president. You've been advising on, how this should work, because as Carol very rightly pointed out at the top, these are small businesses at the end of the day.
You're right. And, if you look at our portfolio, I would estimate about 65% of hotels are owned by small businesses. And these are hardworking men and women trying to make an honest living. And they don't have the wherewithal to withstand this kind of a hit. So I was appreciative of Congress so rapidly acting and providing relief. The CARES Act was helpful. Unfortunately, nobody expected this pandemic to last this long. So if you think about the PPP program, the Paycheck Protection Program, it only provided relief for 8 weeks. And we estimate that this impact is going to be far long-lasting than just a few weeks or a few months. It's going to be a long haul for us. So the program also, the PPP program also didn't provide a lot of flexibility. The loan has very strict usage requirements. 75% has to be used for labor. But if you think about the hotel industry, our debt structure is so different than the typical small businesses like restaurants or barbershops or salons. It requires a very heavy capital investment. So the makeup of how we can spend the money is not even. So it's not really fair to our industry, which was among the hardest hit from the get-go and probably among the last to come out of this.
Right.
So how long do you expect it, as you say, is it a 2021 type of recovery and maybe late in 2021? And as a result, does your industry, and especially as you said, the small business owner, who owns your franchises, do they need another assistance package or a relief package?
They absolutely need help from the government, and a relief package would be very much necessary. As well, we have to look at how we open up the economy. We have a lot of hotels that are still closed right now because of requirements from the city or from the state, and just killing these small businesses.
And so we want to continue this conversation because I'm about to embark on like a whole different subject, which is how you sort of get these hotels up and running and how you advise your franchisees. Because as you say, you've got a lot of small businesses here, and I know that is complicated. We're going to continue our conversation with David Kong in just a few minutes. He is the president and CEO of Best Western Hotels and Resorts, literally thousands of hotels around the world. We're going to talk to him more on the other side about how he goes about doing that. In the meantime, this is a name we've all been hearing so much about today. Moderna, of course, getting those positive results on that early action around the vaccine. They're set to offer shares at $75 to $77.50 each, Carol. So we'll be keeping an eye on what's going on there.
Right, and to use it to fund working capital, further development, their clinical development, of course, going into that phase 3 trial. And we should remind everybody, I think the stock closed above 80. It really shot up in the Monday trade. The stock, in fact, was up almost 20%, closing at $80 even. So no surprise to see them make an offering because they're going to need capital, right, to continue that work. All right, we'll continue our conversation with the Best Western CEO and president.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Hopes for a vaccine to end the coronavirus pandemic sent stock prices soaring. The Dow Jones Industrial Average surged 912, the S&P 500 climbed 90, the Nasdaq Composite jumped 220. Wall Street smells a blockbuster in Moderna's experimental coronavirus vaccine. The biotech firm's shares surged almost 20%. on promising results from early human trials. One analyst sees $10 billion in annual sales. Delta Airlines is putting some flights back on its schedule, providing a hint that demand may be picking up. Flights from New York to Paris and Atlanta to Cancun are among the 100 to be restored in June. It says the schedule remains subject to change. More job cuts at Uber as the pandemic forces a revamp of its business. Another 3,000 jobs are being cut as Uber shuts dozens of offices and eliminates many side projects. Larry Kofsky, Bloomberg Radio.
The possibility of lung cancer can be pretty scary, especially if you're one of approximately 8 million current or former smokers at high risk. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know that now there's a breakthrough low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early, and it only takes 60 seconds. You stop smoking, now start screening. For an easy quiz to see if you're eligible, visit SaveByTheScan.org. It could save your life. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
If knowledge is power, the Bloomberg Terminal is your power up, connecting you to real-time financial data, market-moving news, powerful analytics, and an influential network of financial decision makers around the world. Share ideas, negotiate trades, and gain the insight you need to make more informed decisions. See how the terminal can take your workflow to the next level at Bloomberg.com/professional.
Are you interested in a challenging
At George, we know there's nothing better than catching up with your mates. That's why we've invited Fern McCann over for a cuppa and a chat with some of her besties. Because staying in is the new going out, right? Join us and Fern over on our Instagram TV at Georgia Asda to get all the latest gossip, giggles and fashion tips. Sunday at 6 p.m.
This is an important update from the government about coronavirus. We all need to stay alert so we can control the virus and reduce the risk of infection. To stay alert, you must remain at home as much as possible. Work from home if you can. Limit your contact with other people. If you have to go out, keep your distance from others, 2 meters apart where possible. Continue to wash your hands regularly. Do not leave home if you or anyone in your household has symptoms. Stay alert. Control the virus. Save lives.
Keep up with everything happening in the wild world of pro wrestling with a podcast on TuneIn. For expert analysis straight from the WWE to Steve Austin's no-holds-barred conversations with wrestling's biggest personalities, search sports and scroll down to the world of wrestling to listen.
Let's be honest, we all spend too much of our day on social media. But at least you can spend your endless scroll time to discover new things on TuneIn. Follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to always be in the know about the best new stuff streaming in the app. From breaking news stories and live sporting events. He does! Fabry wins it! To standout stations and podcasts. Stay in touch with TuneIn.
Introducing a new podcast, ESPN Daily, hosted by me, Mina Kimes. When you want to go beyond your feed, when you want to get inside the score, when you want to get behind the highlight, there's ESPN Daily. Go deeper into the stories of the moment. Get the exclusive access and insider perspective that only ESPN can give you. The best sports story all day, 20 minutes a day, 5 days a week. ESPN Daily.
Search ESPN Daily to listen.
Okay, here we go.
With the NFL draft in the books and the schedule set, check out a TuneIn podcast for daily updates on the lead up to the 2020 season. Like the Ringer NFL show, where a rotating cast of Ringer experts talk with players, coaches, and special guests about the NFL landscape.
A lot of the other teams that we consider...
Or ESPN's NFL Live.
If there are some delays because of the COVID-19...
Search sports on TuneIn to explore these pods and much more.
Get your MLB fix with these great podcasts on TuneIn. Fill your seventh inning stretch with the Ringer MLB Show.
I just can't get over it. It's like, oh, well, Jeter Downs didn't realize he was a top. Like, my dad is drinking the Kool-Aid on this. He's like, of course. Mookie was going to leave. I'm like, what do you mean? You don't know that.
Slide into second with the Starting Nine podcast.
Nolan Arenado slides right into the top spot for a favorite baseball player. active in the league right now. It is a pleasure to be sitting next to you, sir.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thank you.
This is we've been waiting a long time for this. We actually, in terms of like active
Round the bases with the StatCast podcast.
Ways of going about it. I picked third, so in some ways it made it easier for me. Mike, just to go over the first couple of picks, Mike took Barry Bonds, who I think was kind of the obvious guy to take number one. Not only
catch these and more MLB podcasts right here on TuneIn.
Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C., Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston, Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco, Bloomberg 960 to the country, Sirius XM Channel 119, and around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Business Week.
So we're going to continue our conversation with the CEO, president of Best Western. Interested to hear how they come back. We were talking about gyms a little while ago. Mm-hmm. Hotels, man, they've got to have some pretty stringent standards, I'm sure.
Absolutely, right? People have to feel secure about, popping into a hotel room. All right, we'll get to that in just a moment. Let's get back to your top business stories and some of the news after the closing bell. Hey, Charlie Pellet.
Indeed, lots of stories developing after the closing bell. Great reason to keep it locked into Bloomberg. Let's whip right through these headlines. First of all, President Trump says he is taking the malaria drug hydroxychloroquine. The president says so far he seems okay while on the malaria drug. Again, developing story. Just getting word out of Texas, the number of virus cases there rising 1.9%. That is below the one-week average of 3%. Top of the hour, we told you that U.S. virus cases are up 1.2%, slowest pace in over 2 weeks. Also, one additional headline, Fannie Mae is going to be hiring a financial advisor for ending conservatorship, and Baidu sees second quarter revenue in the range of 25.08 won to 27.3 billion won. Estimates there 25.6 billion won. So again, lots of headlines out after the bell. We'll have more on Baidu for you also coming up. Fed Chair Jay Powell says the central bank is prepared to use its full range of tools and leave the benchmark lending rate near zero until the economy is back on track. So what about the U.S.? What about the global recovery? David Kelly is Chief Global Strategist at J.P. Morgan Asset Management.
I mean, whatever you think about the way the Chinese handled this at the start, and there's a lot of blame to be accrued there, it looks like East Asia is coming out of this faster. I mean, Japan looks like they've almost got this under control. South Korea has. Australia, New Zealand, Taiwan. China itself claims to have it under control. So it could be that East Asia comes out of this faster. It may be that Europe does a better job. Maybe they're a little bit more disciplined in the lockdown than we are. We may be the last out of this thing.
Stocks surged the most in almost 6 weeks after promising early results for an experimental vaccine from Moderna sparked speculation economies could snap back quickly. Moderna shares did rally today, up by 19.9%. Hertz Global Holdings has promoted the head of its North American car rental operations to lead the company as its chief executive officer leaves in the midst of efforts to ward off bankruptcy. And American Express says a majority of the company's employees will work remotely through the end of the year this year as it seeks to slow the spread of the coronavirus. 10-year yield 0.72%, gold down 0.7%, crude West Texas Intermediate surged 11.7%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thanks a lot. Let's continue our conversation with David Kong, President and CEO of Best Western Hotels and Resorts, joining us on the phone from Chicago. David, thanks so much for staying with us. All right, so walk us through how hotels come back. How do they reopen, and what advice, what sort of things are you putting in place to make people feel comfortable?
Well, actually, the hotel industry as a whole understands that cleanliness and sanitation would be top of mind for any travelers. And whether it's families wanting to take their family on a vacation in the summer or business travelers having to hit the road again. So we have to provide that reassurance and comfort. So all of us, all the major hotel companies, as well as individual hotels, have been implementing various kinds of cleanliness or sanitation programs. At Best Western, back in 2012, we pioneered with our iCare Clean program, the use of ultraviolet wands for cleaning and remotes that can be wiped down and sanitized. So we were at the forefront of the industry in terms of cleanliness. And with the onset of the pandemic, we have continued to improve our cleaning protocols and enhance them. that most recently, based on guidance and recommendations from different experts, CDC and EPS, as well as the EPA, as well as the OSHA folks, we launched the new iteration of the We Care Clean program, and it has various components, whether it's in guest rooms or lobby or for our own employees, and so we intend to step up the cleanliness and sanitation efforts even further.
David, and I want to ask you because, okay, and anyone knows this, where there's any organization that's a franchise organization, that not every franchisee or franchise owner, approaches running a business the same. And I do understand that you have standards, but what will you have to do to some extent, kind of police all of your different properties? Because one bad property can create a really bad image for the entire brand. So what are you going to be doing to make sure everybody gets it right?
You're right. In most franchise organizations, that's always been a problem. In our situation, I like to think that it's better in the sense that our hotels are owned by small businesses. These are owners and operators, and by nature, they are caring people. And that's why we named our cleaning program the We Care Clean program, because there's not enough policing to make sure that everyone is doing his or her share. It has to come from the heart. It has to be a desire to provide a clean, healthy environment, not just for the traveling public, but also for our employees. That caring is what makes the difference.
So, David, as you've done this study, what do you think is the most important? I mean, obviously the whole regimen is really important, but as you talk to employees, as you talk to franchise owners, and as you talk to customers, what's the main thing they are concerned about?
It's not one thing. It's a general feeling that you are going to help me stay healthy and your environment is conducive to my travel needs. So, for example, when you walk into the hotel, that sense of comfort is immediately provided at our hotels because you'll see signage, you'll see plexiglass partition sometimes, or otherwise there's going to be a distance between the front desk and the guests just checking in. We encourage the use of our mobile concierge platform, so we minimize interaction in the front desk. All key cards are sanitized. Anything that's used by the guests is sanitized. We've decluttered the lobby. We've removed furniture. So we have social distancing. When they go into the guest room, they'll notice a significant difference as well. We've removed all the clutter. We've removed pens and writing pads. And we encourage our guests actually to just make requests through our mobile concierge or call down if they need additional towels or have the trash emptied. But, we'll want to respect the privacy. The last thing a traveler wants right now is a housekeeper to walk into the room when they're there.
Yeah.
Try to clean the room. So to safeguard their health and their need for privacy, we encourage them to just text us or call us in terms of their needs. But otherwise, we don't want to intrude on their privacy.
Yeah, it's such
likewise.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're going to have to leave it there, David. It's such an interesting balance, obviously, that everybody's going to have to strike between still giving good service, but obviously being respectful and doing all the things that folks are going to need to do. David Kong, thank you so much, President and CEO, Best Western Hotels and Resorts, joining us on the phone from Chicago. Let's get out to San Francisco now. Ed Baxter's there. He's got world and national headlines. Hi, Ed.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, Jason. Hi, Carol. Attorney General William Barr says he doesn't expect any investigation of the early stages of the Russia election investigation to bring any criminal investigation of former President Barack Obama or Vice President Joe Biden. This despite prodding by Donald Trump.
I'm committed that this election will be conducted without this kind of
Ed Baxter there for a second. And obviously, that is one of the big stories coming out of Washington today. Carol, the Attorney General, saying he does not expect that the former president, former vice president will be a part of that criminal investigation.
And I got to say, one of the other big stories is the headlines that just crossed the Bloomberg about the president saying that he's taking the malaria drug hydroxychloroquine.
Thank
you, hydroxychloroquine. Quinn, you always say it better than I do. But anyway, experimental. There's lots of questions about it. He does say he's always show negative, has no symptoms. So
he's not tested positive
correct.
For COVID-19.
I'm not reading our headlines well. Thank you very much for that.
You're welcome. We're obviously going to have more on this story, and presumably the president and maybe his physician are going to say more about this. He has been, I think it's fair to say, I don't know if this is exactly the right phrasing, a fan of this drug. I mean, he has talked about his sense of its efficacy in treating COVID-19, though the medical evidence, I think, has been mixed, as one of our producers said, as we were trying to frame this story a bit. So we'll see where that ends up.
President of the Jewish Communal Fund, Zoya Raines, and her husband, Robert Friedman, Jewish activists and philanthropists, talk about why they chose the Jewish Communal Fund for their charitable giving.
As very busy working parents, we wanted to focus more on the charity part of it and wanted to focus more on our children and less on the administration.
The Jewish Communal Fund is one of the oldest and largest donor-advised funds, but at the same time, they're totally up to date and have state-of-the-art systems for us to access and manage our contributions online. The assets in our fund at the JCF grow tax-free, so we can generate more charitable dollars to support the charities that we care about most.
Let JCF minimize your taxes and maximize your charitable giving.
We're incredibly passionate about our charity, and the JCF allows us to focus more on the charity and less on the administration and the headaches.
For more information about Jewish Communal Fund, visit our website at jcfny.org and request a new fund kit.
Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. I came out in the 11th grade. Nobody was embracing you. The kids were cruel. It was very difficult to be gay. Even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma. The hard part was determining that I was going to do it, but I definitely didn't do it alone.
At age 30, with the help of her mentor, Carissa finished her high school diploma.
I have a mentor, Maria. She convinced me to continue my education and to finish what I started to get my diploma. Just never judges. She's a true role model. If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, go get it. You can do it.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
Bloomberg and Eaton Vance are proud to...
At George, we know there's nothing better than catching up with your mates. That's why we've invited Fern McCann over for a cuppa and a chat with some of her besties. Because staying in is the new going out, right? Join us and Fern over on our Instagram TV at Georgia Asda to get all the latest gossip, giggles and fashion tips. Sunday at 6 p.m.
This is an important update from the government about coronavirus. We all need to stay alert so we can control the virus and reduce the risk of infection. To stay alert, you must remain at home as much as possible. Work from home if you can. Limit your contact with other people. If you have to go out, keep your distance from others, 2 meters apart where possible. Continue to wash your hands regularly. Do not leave home if you or anyone in your household has symptoms. Stay alert. Control the virus. Save lives.
Behind the highlight reels, championship rings, and colossal paychecks, there are sports stories that fuel, deepen, and even challenge our love for the game. For true tales of underdogs, anti-heroes, and game-changing innovators, explore a sports documentary on TuneIn, like Sports Wars, telling the origin stories of classic rivalries, Raise Sports, about the concussion crisis that threatens football's future, and Dunkumentaries, a podcast devoted to the beauty and power of the slam dunk. For these and more, search Sports Documentaries on TuneIn.
Okay, here we go.
With the NFL draft in the books and the schedule set, check out a TuneIn podcast for daily updates on the lead up to the 2020 season. Like the Ringer NFL show, where a rotating cast of Ringer experts talk with players, coaches, and special guests about the NFL landscape.
A lot of the other teams that we consider...
Or ESPN's NFL Live.
If there are some delays because of the COVID-19...
Search sports on TuneIn to explore these pods and much more.
Get your MLB fix with these great podcasts on TuneIn. Fill your seventh inning stretch with the Ringer MLB Show.
I just can't get over it. It's like, oh, well, Jeter Downs. Didn't realize he was a top. Like, my dad is drinking the Kool-Aid on this. He's like, of course. Mookie was going to leave. I'm like, what do you mean? You don't know that.
Slide into second with the Starting Nine podcast.
Nolan Arenado slides right into the top spot for a favorite baseball player. Active in the league right now. It is a pleasure to be sitting next to you, sir.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thank you.
This is we've been waiting a long time for this. We actually, in terms of like active
Round the Bases with the Statcast podcast.
Ways of going about it. I picked third, so in some ways it made it easier for me. Mike, just to go over the first couple of picks. Mike took Barry Bonds, who I think was kind of the obvious guy to take number one. Not only
catch these and more MLB podcasts right here on TuneIn.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. Want to find a station from somewhere else in the world? Navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
Want to relive the glory of college football?
Balls over a man, into the end zone.
Come explore TuneIn's classic game replay collection to hear ESPN's complete coverage of the 2019 New Year's 6 bowl games. Don't miss your chance to re-experience the Rose Bowl, the 2020 National Championship, featuring Clemson and LSU.
There are going to be 2 champions on the field tomorrow night. There's going to be 1 team hold up the trophy.
10, to the 5, touchdown! Search classic game replays to listen for free.
News 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. Fed Chair Jay Powell says the central bank is prepared to use its full range of tools and leave the benchmark lending rate near zero until the economy is back on track. Powell goes virtually to Capitol Hill tomorrow for his testimony. Stocks surged the most in almost 6 weeks after promising early results for an experimental vaccine sparked speculation economies could snap back quickly. The Dow surged 911 points up today by 3.8%. S&P up 90, a gain of 3.1%. NASDAQ up 220, up by 2.4%. 10-year down 26/30 seconds, the yield 0.72%. Gold down 0.7%, 17.30 the ounce. Crude surged 11.1%. West Texas Intermediate now at 32.72 a barrel. Recapping a rally on Wall Street today with the S&P up 90, up 3.1%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, much appreciated. So our focus on small business continues. Joining the conversation is Jane Veron. She's co-founder and CEO of the Acceleration Project. It's a consulting firm which focuses on minority and women-owned businesses. She joins us on the phone from Westchester, New York. Jane, nice to have you here on Bloomberg Radio. Tell us a little bit about your organization. We've been talking a lot, Jason and myself, my co-host, about the impact the virus has had on small businesses. And we do see Fed Chief Jay Powell looking more closely at the impact. Tell us a little bit about what you're seeing and what your organization is working on.
Great. Yes, thanks. Hi, Carol and Jason. It's so great to be here. TAP, our acronym for the Acceleration Project, we are a female-founded, female-led organization, and our goal is to bring Wall Street expertise to Main Street, all around keeping small businesses vital. So you ask at this time, we are so much about survival and pivoting and thriving. What we are seeing and what we had seen initially was a real crisis around cash and liquidity. We immediately pivoted to develop tools to help small businesses, and these are moms and pop. I mean, we focus on women, minority-owned businesses, but in truth, given the crisis, everybody was in crisis. All these businesses were in crisis. And so we developed tools like a PPP tracker to help our small businesses think through what their expenses are so that they could even seek forgiveness on the other end, if they were even lucky enough to get the PPP to begin with.
And so what are you seeing so far? Because I feel like as often happens in these cases, there's some good intention behind a program, but the execution gets a little bit spotty or tricky, and folks are really in pretty desperate need, as you say. What have you seen as you've looked across your the work that you're doing with small businesses in terms of them actually getting the funding that they need and the help that they need?
Right. Well, what differentiates us truly is that we are in the trenches day in, day out. So there's so much information out there. In fact, there's an information overload that businesses are experiencing. And what we've spent a tremendous amount of time on is calling it through and then customizing, speaking directly with the business owners, because not only do they have to think about running their business, dealing with their financials, and these are amazing business owners who bring their product and service to all of us, and we are so appreciative. But they now need to think about all sorts of other things around sanitation and how they emerge and how if they furlough employees. And so what we have done is we've shifted our focus. So one, we worked on the loan piece, and while not as many got loans, and I hope with this next round of PPP it will be easier, and even maybe the shift from 75-25 will be incredibly helpful to the businesses. What we're doing now is boot camp. We are helping businesses pivot. We had a business referred to us by our client. We partner with big financial institutions. So PNC sponsored us to help Pittsburgh women-owned businesses. We helped them with financial management and forecasting, all this pre-COVID. Now they came to us kind of like, oh my God, I need cash. How am I going to pivot? My business, there's one woman, she runs a wedding decor business. It was all in person and event-driven. That can't be. And she has so much inventory. And so we have brainstormed with her on how we move her to a year-round online consignment organization so that she could actually get the cash she needs and continue to function.
Jane, what's your fear?
I want to get to as many businesses as possible because there's so much kind of a lack of clarity and lack of focus, because what the business owners need is to take a deep breath. If they've got the liquidity, they need to figure out how to reemerge, and the world is going to be different. So I want, and particularly women, minority-owned, those who don't have access to this kind of advice, they need that kind of hand-holding. And we're seeking to double or triple our size, because it is so clear that not only do we bring the business acumen, but we really know how to hold the business's hand.
I have to jump in because, this is, Jason and I have had a lot of conversations about, these vulnerabilities and situations that have been out there in society for years, but yet they're being laid bare because of the virus. But, I'm listening to you say women and minority owned, businesses don't have access to whether it's, cash or liquidity lines and so on and so forth. Why is that still the case today?
Well, I was speaking to our head of service delivery, and we have a pretty significant Spanish-speaking practice. And a lot of the Hispanic owners, weren't even bankable. They weren't banking clients. They were, concerned and didn't feel comfortable in that world. And so what we're now doing is trying to partner them with micro lenders. So it's a lot of these institutions, or these small businesses, not institutions, didn't have that kind of relationship. And so what I really believe is the personalization of the advice, because that's what businesses need at this point. There's so much, how do you cull through this information?
And even with that, Jane, I do wonder if you can generalize, what's the biggest mistake that they make sort of before you get to them? What is the thing that you consistently see they're doing, either in a choice that they make or in a choice that they don't make?
Kind of a panicked response.
Yeah.
So what, we just, for our history, we started in 2012 when the internet and big box stores were the real threat. And I actually said, okay, I want to build this business because at that point, it was a seismic shift in the way the economies function for small business. But now there's the urgency. The urgency, it's like the compressed time, and that forces people and business owners to panic. So sometimes they don't step back and understand all the resources that they have available and think of creative ways. We're going back to what is the essence of what you do? Who are your loyal customers? Because that's the place to start. How do you retrain your employees? Because so often you're going to need different skill sets as we move forward. There's going to be some of our mom and pop, our brick and mortar.
Yeah. No,
6 to 10% was online sales. Now they need to figure out how to do this so differently.
That's a really good point. We've talked a lot about that the jobs that are going to be needed on the other side of this are not necessarily going to be the same going into the virus. Jane, just quickly, got about 30 seconds here. So if there's a small business owner out there, is there a way that they can, who do you decide who to work with, just quickly?
We are trying to quadruple our capacity. Apply to us at the accelerationproject.org online, fill out an application, and we will, put you in our queue. And we are just so desperate to help everybody. I'm not a doctor. I wish I could be on the front lines, but I know how to do this, and so does my organization. So we're here to help.
All
right. We really appreciate Jane Varon is the CEO of the Acceleration Project. A hat tip to our friend Michael Ainsley.